Welcome back to FOSS Physics of Sound. This is Investigation 4 Sound Challenges. In Investigation 4 Sound Challenges, students will be given the opportunity to report their findings from various investigations in informational text. They will be able to demonstrate an understanding of what sound is, the relationship between pitch of a sound and the physical properties of the sound source, how sound travels from a source through various mediums to the receiver. Investigation 4 is broken down into two parts. Part 1 is a sound challenge, where each group of students will get a different challenge and materials in order to solve that challenge. Part 2, choosing your own investigation, where students will come up with their own question and investigate that question and share it out with the class after. For Part 1, this does take 2 class sessions. You're going to need all the previously used instruments for this. You're also going to need, in addition to those instruments, 8 megaphones, and you're going to have various materials that maybe the students want to use for their challenge. Students are going to be separated into 8 groups or less, depending on your class size, and depending on if you want to use all the different investigations. You can go through and pick. I break this down for one class is for planning and completing the challenges. The second class is for putting together the final touches on the challenges and then presentations. Each presentation should take roughly 5 minutes. That way each group will have time to present. Part 2, choosing your own investigation. According to the teacher guide, this will take 4 to 6 class sessions. I find that I always run out of time for this. So what I do is I have this take 2 class sessions. I'll actually assign this investigation before doing the sound challenges. So I'll reverse the order. I'll begin part 2 first, then I'll do part 1, and then I'll come back and revisit part 2. So for day 1 of part 2, what I do is I talk about the planning. We go over the project ideas, presentation guidelines, and project proposal. They'll work that day in class and they'll decide which project they want to do. I help them with the proposal that they need. Then I'll send the rest home and they'll do it for homework. They'll have about 2 weeks to do this for homework. And then what they come back is they come back and they do the presentations. I've had some awesome projects from this. I've had students create wooden guitars. I've had students create guitars with pianos and drums attached to it. I've had a lot of students do drums with empty coffee cans, and they did different pitches depending on if they pull the material tighter. So I've gotten some really great presentations and projects from this. So it's not one that you want to skip. If you have time for it, definitely do it. Send it home for homework. I find that works best. Science stories. Just like in the other investigations, there's lots of science stories. Make sure you use that science part of the folio. So I'll show you how to find that really quick. In the science part of the folio, it's going to give you all different information. It's going to give you all the different stories, when to use them, questions to ask, everything you might need. So in Investigation 4, there's 2 science stories that are to be read prior to part 1. So the section in the science stories will help you relate the story to the investigation. Sometimes I have students say, why are we reading this? This will give you a breakdown of exactly how it relates to your investigation. Then it asks for key questions. Here are the 2 stories that are part of Investigation 4, Lights, Camera, Action, and Grandmother's Hearing Test. You can see here the science content, the type of literature, and then the interpretation of literature. So it's really informative stuff here. End of the unit assessment. There's 2 types of end of the unit assessment here. There's performance tasks. The way that I tend to do this is there's 2 different stations. So what I'll do is I'll do 1 station each class. I'll set up 2 to 3 stations, and I just separate them so the students can't see each other, whether I put a file folder up, notebooks, whatever I need to put up in between so they can't see each other. That way I can view all 3 students at one time and have them do the performance task, check off how they do, so that way it will run much quicker rather than having 1 student come up at a time. This takes roughly 5 minutes for each performance task, and there's 2 performance tasks. Then there's also a multiple choice short answer questions. This will take about one class time as well.